Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and today we're talking about FOMO, or otherwise known as the fear of missing out. Now, more specifically for the context of this video, what I'm trying to do is similar to my video about how to keep a lean collection, which I'll link up here. This is a video that's meant to help you have fewer games than you already do, only if that's something you want for yourself. It's something I touched upon in the last video. If you want to collect games, go for it. Come to our store, BoardGameCo.com. We have a lot of games, hard to find, easy to find. Trust me when I say I would rather you buy games from us. In the meantime though, in terms of FOMO, in terms of helping you not get games, keep in mind this video is at direct odds with what we try to do when we sell you games, but nonetheless, I care about your collection, I care about the hobby, so I'm happy to put out a video that is against my best interests. In any case, FOMO, fear of missing out. So the how to keep a lean collection was more of a video that was meant to help you get rid of games that you already have, to help you decide what you needed to do to get rid of a game. Once you've acquired a game, you shouldn't keep it forever. You should have a process in place, and that video was meant to help you guide that. This video is more about how to help you not get those games in the first place. And yes, some of these tips can be applied as well to games already in your collection, but they are certainly more helpful for games that aren't in your collection and you're trying to struggle with the whole balance of getting more games versus not getting more games. So to begin with, my very first tip is, and this is pretty simple, but only get games that you believe you will be able to play. Only get games that actually have a chance of hitting the table. And this is something I talked about briefly in the last video, but if a game doesn't have a fit in your collection, if a game is best with 8 players and you don't have 8 players, if a game is a party game but you know your group and you know that party games only get pulled out once every 6 months and you already pull out game X when you're doing that, only get games that you realistically believe have a chance of hitting the table. If you're not going to play it, why are you getting it? Again, unless you're a collector. If you're collecting and you have no problem with the fact that you're going to get a game and you won't play it, that's totally fine. But if you have this objective to play games and you want to collect your games based around that, don't get games that aren't going to be played. There's no reason for it. You want a game to just sit on your shelf? And something that I didn't talk about in the last video, but I want to address here, is there's a certain OOP argument. There's a certain out-of-print argument that people like to apply. Well, I like game X, and even though I'm not going to play it now, what if it goes out of print? Battlestar Galactica used to be a $25 game. Now it's $100. What am I supposed to do? That argument only works for the exceptions. If you apply the math across all the games you're getting that you don't want to get, I have this one friend who's terrible at this. Every time he likes a game, even though I have the game, even though he doesn't need to play his copy, even though we always play my copy, he still wants it. Because what if Kemet goes out of print? What happens? Well, great, Kemet might go out of print. Also, Kemet is being reprinted right now. So the copy of Kemet you bought 5 years ago, because Kemet might go out of print, is now currently being reprinted. Also, there's 15 other games that you bought because of the same argument, what if it goes out of print, that are now selling at a discount. Blackout Hong Kong, you can get it for $20 or whatever it is. Most games on average will go down in price. Yes, there will be Grail games that go up in price, but when you apply that argument of it's out of print so I have to get it now, you can't just apply it to the exceptions that prove your rule, that justify your habits. You have to apply it to all the games you purchased. Take a look, go through your collection and pick out 20 games that never actually saw the table and you got with that argument. Tell me what the actual price is now. Tell me what you paid for them. Do you really believe you actually saved yourself some massive out-of-print demand? It is better to not get those games and lose $15, $20 on all the ones that you didn't get, to save it, save $15, $20, and then sure, you'll buy Battlestar Galactica and you'll lose $80. That's fine. On average, this argument doesn't work in your favor. It only works in your favor for the exceptions. But yeah, seriously, going back to what I was saying, ask yourself if you'll be playing the game. There could be any number of reasons you're not playing it. It could be that it's not a fit for your gaming group. It could be that your gaming group does want to play it, but you have better games for that player count, for that length. And that's a big one, by the way. Player count and length is a big deal. If you have too many 4-player games that you want to play every game night, and this one is not, and you have another one that you want to get, if you're already behind on your 4-player games, if you already have 15 that you like and another 6 that you want to play, why are you getting another 4-player game that takes 2 hours when you already have games in that genre? Get it later. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that later in this video. Secondly, it might be that you would play that game, but you have someone else in your group who either has that game or you play that game. If you don't need that game because someone else has it, why are you getting it? Again, unless you're a collector. If you're collecting, fine. If you're getting them so you can experience the playing of a game, why are you getting games that aren't hitting the table? So that's reason one, in terms of don't get games that you want to play. Do a real cost-benefit analysis, real introspection on whether that game is likely to hit the table, and only acquire it when it's going to get to that point, when it actually has a chance of hitting the table. Reason number two is, or tip number two, is let the market learn for you. There's a regular problem that games come out, they're new, they're shiny, someone loves it. Oh, look at this review, look at this, look at this game that just hit the market by this designer that I love. Give the market time. Give the market time to see whether a game is loved. And I don't mean the first week. The first week is often useless. The first month or two is often useless. There's often a lot of hype around new games that disappears over time. Why is it disappearing over time? Why are there certain games, again using Kemet as an example, Kemet, Blood Rage, Dice Throne, there are certain games that continue, Gloomhaven, that continue to receive hype years after they come out. Why is it that other games people love for a year or two and then they go away? Those are flash-in-the-pan games, or even better, or even worse, games that just straight up aren't good. Let the market do the learning for you. Unless you have a lack of new games to play, and if you do, this video is not for you, but unless you have a lack of games to play, why are you constantly pursuing games that the market hasn't validated as being good? Save yourself the time, save yourself the money, save yourself the mental energy of getting another game, finding a place to put it, learning the rules, finding time to play it. Save yourself all that process if it's not even worth getting. Wait till the market decides that it's good. Set a time limit, 6 months, a year, whatever it needs to be. And if the game is still being talked about, if people still like that game, then go ahead. Talk about acquiring it. Get it then. Why is there a need to get every single new game when it first comes out, and you are basically absorbing the learning cost of whether this game deserves to be an evergreen, deserves to be a game that will be reprinted, that will be constantly available for people to play? You're absorbing that cost when you decide to get these games earlier. And again, if you have a lack of games to play, I understand that. Of course you want to get another new game to the table. But if there are 30 games on your shelf that are not being played, if there's another 200 games that you love but don't play enough, why are you in such a rush to test for other people? Why are you interested in sacrificing your valuable time, money, your game time, your mental energy? You're sacrificing that for other people to learn. If you want to do that, if it's a noble sacrifice, go ahead. But otherwise, you're being the guinea pig for other people. So give the market time. Let the market learn whether a game is good, and when it's good, get it. And there are exceptions, and unfortunately, Kickstarter is a big one for me, where the nature of Kickstarter is you're trying to get it now for those extras. But I talk about this in other Kickstarter videos. I only do that when I believe there's a return on my money to begin with. I don't bother investing in a Kickstarter to absorb that learning unless there's a reward. If it's just a risk, I'm not interested. I want the reward too. But with a regular retail game, there is no reward. The only reward is if the game goes out of print and now you have a copy. But again, most of the time, games that go out of print, most of the time, there are exceptions, most of the time it's because they're not good enough to continue being in print. There are exceptions, that is definitely true. Games that lose licensing rights is a big one. If there's a good game but they lost the license, those are often good games, like Battlestar Galactica or whatnot, that have lost the license, and so they're exceptions. But don't base all your spending decisions around the exceptions unless you apply that logic to all the games in your collection. And finally, point 3, and this is honestly my favorite, this is the one that works best for me. For these other ones, it is a constant, despite my ease of saying it on camera, it is a constant struggle to remind myself of these reasons. It's a constant struggle to remind myself that I don't need to get every single new game, that I should let the market decide. Ooh, Maracaibo, it looks amazing, it looks incredible, everyone's loving it, they're talking about how it's his best game yet. I need to remind myself to give the market time. If it's his best game yet, it'll still be his best game in a month. It'll still be his best game in 6 months, and you won't have to pay the premium. You can wait, there's a discount, a sale, all these things. So tip number 3, is the one that I find most useful for myself. Maybe you'll find it the most useful for yourself. Maybe other tips will be better for you. But tip number 3 is keep a list. Now, I don't know about you, but I have multiple lists of games. I have games that I've had, I have lists of games that I own, I have lists of games that I've gotten rid of, I have lists of games that I haven't played yet and want to play, and I have lists of games that I want to get. Now, in the list of games I want to get, I actually divide it into 2 categories. There's a list of games I want to get now, and there's a list of games I want to get eventually. It is mentally freeing to find a game that you want, that you're having trouble justifying whether it has a space in your collection, and putting it on that list of games I want to get eventually. The problem is, let's take Fury of Dracula. Fury of Dracula is sadly sitting on my shelf unplayed, and I do want to play it, but there are a lot of other games I want to play more than that game. So at the moment, Fury of Dracula has been relegated, and this is a game I already own, but it applies to games you don't own yet. It has been relegated to a list of games I'll get to eventually. It's mentally freeing to sit there and say, I will get this game because I have FOMO. I will 100% get it. It's not a problem, but it's going on my eventual list. I'll get it later when there's really more of a drive to get it. I'll get it. I'm going to play that game. Of course I'm going to play all the games. I mean, who's going to think that I won't play all the games? We will play all the games. We have the time. We'll make it work. So I'll put it on that second list. And then it's gone. It's off. I still look at the list. I occasionally purge the list because, surprisingly enough, many of these games over time I sit there and say, you know what? The market doesn't seem to have liked this game. I'll get rid of it. Or I no longer have a space for this in my collection. Something else did it better. There are many, many games for me that go on my eventually going to get list. And it's not a list that I'm actually going to get most of the titles on. It's just a way of saying that, yes, I have given this game my attention. Yes, I will get it, but eventually. For right now, there's too many games I'm trying to play. And a big part of that, this goes back to how I said, for any game time, for any length of time, for any game weight, for any number of player counts, there's different games. There's games I have that I want to play, and there's games that there's games that I want to play, and there's games that I have played and want to play again. So let's say if I want a 3-hour heavy game that plays best with 4 players, there are any number of games that are already in my collection. There's Lancaster, there's Blood Rage, there's Rising Sun, there's a whole bunch of games, there's Gentees, there's dozens and dozens of games, not dozens, there's more than 10 games in my collection that fit that slot. 3 hours plus, best with 4. But additionally, there are many games that I haven't played that fit that slot. There's Maracaibo, for instance. I'd have to look at my list, honestly, but there's a lot of games that are best with 4 players that play at 3 hours plus that I'm trying to get to the table. So before I get a game, what I have to ask myself is, does this potential game, Game X that I see on the internets that I want, that plays best with 4 players, that plays in 3 hours, do I want it enough that I'm going to pick it over Blood Rage? Am I interested enough that I'm really going to learn the rules and get it to the table before Blood Rage? If the answer is no, then I look at my other list of, what about the games I want to play that I haven't played yet? What about these 4 games that are best with 4, that are 3 hours plus, that I haven't yet played? Do I like this one enough? Am I excited about it enough that I'm going to pick it over Game X? Or is it really going to go to the bottom of the pile? I want to play it, but eventually. If it's going to the bottom of the pile, it goes on that list. Why should I get it? Why should I pay to acquire it, to ship it, to learn the rules, if I can instead just put it on my eventually going to get list? And then sure, when I'm looking at my list and saying, oh, you know what? I don't actually have any games that play best with 4 that are 3 hours plus that I need to learn. I've learned them all. They're all in my collection. Or this one is higher on the list now. Then I sit there and I move it over. But again, it's this idea of a fictional list. A list where you can say, I will push this off, I'm going to get it, but it's going to be an imaginary going to get it. Maybe one day you actually will. Sometimes I do get these games. More often than not, it's just a way of taking it off your decision tree. It's a way of saying, I will get that game, I will play that game, but eventually. So there you have it. Those are my 3 main tips. There's a whole bunch more, but these are just the 3 I came up with for this video. Those are my 3 main tips of how to deal with FOMO, how to find ways around the FOMO of wanting to play every single game that you totally, absolutely will have time for. Once again, just a quick recap. Don't get games that aren't a fit for your collection, for your group. Don't get games that won't see the table. Number 2, let the market decide for you. Get the game, but get it in a year. Get it later after everyone else has sat there and said the game is good. You don't need to be the sacrificial lamb on figuring out whether a game is a good fit for, whether a game is an evergreen, whether a game is worth sticking around. And finally, 3, keep a list. All those games that you want to get, that you're so worried you're not going to get, put them on a list. Put it on a piece of paper. Put it on an Excel sheet, on a Google Doc. Put it on a Trello board. Find somewhere that you have that's a list of all the games you're eventually totally going to get as soon as you're excited enough about it to get it. And then put them there. That's basically it. Hopefully you found these tips helpful for you. Once again, I'm Alex from BoardGameCo. If you want to support these videos, if you like the content, first of all, leave comments down below. I love interacting. I love knowing what's working for you guys, what's not working, which videos are, being watched and appreciated, and which ones are, kind of not so much. But if you want to support this content, go to our site, BoardGameCo.com. Buy some games, come to us on Board Game Geek or wherever, trade with us. Basically, utilize it for a win-win. There's no Patreon or nothing like that, just support our store. Other than that, you can like this video, you can subscribe, watch another video somewhere on these sides, and until next time, have a good one.